In the late 18th century, a charming little village of colonists was established. The village occupants, all of Danish descent, had relocated from Chicago. A civil engineer of the Model Land Company platted the settlement and named it Modello as a tribute to the Model Land Company. Eventually, the town, which was a part of Dade County at that time, would change its name to Dania to honor the early settlers. Life was difficult, and few could endure the hardships of pioneer living. However, Andrew Frost, who was born in Denmark and served as an agent for the Model Land Company, came to Dania and founded a small tomato farm in the East Marsh from Federal Highway to the Intercoastal Waterway. A few years later, he relocated his entire family into the town and erected a general store, a post office, and built the first school in Dania. In 1903, the Dania Methodist Church was established. In 1904, a rock road was built from Dania to Miami. That same year, 29 of 35 freeholders gathered in Dania's Seminole Hall to sign a charter to incorporate the city of Dania. City officials were Mayor John Milliken, S.M. Alsbrook, George Jones, C.N. Nelson, N.C. Pike, and H.T. Tubbs. The tomato farms began to proliferate, and Dania was becoming known as the tomato capital of the world. By 1911, it was time to purchase the city's first firefighting apparatus. It took 6 people to get the apparatus to a fire. After Andrew Frost's death, his son was quick to follow in his father's footsteps. He was concerned that Dania had no packing plants and that the tomatoes were being shipped to Jacksonville by train, where they were packed and then shipped to New York. Very quickly, Dania became home to 2 canning factories and 14 packing houses where thousands of tomatoes were packed, canned, and shipped to the Northeast under the names Frosties or Love Tomatoes. The black community was significant in the development of Dania with many strong education-minded leaders. Leola Collins, a community activist and business owner, secured the first medical facility for blacks. Collins Elementary School is named to honor her achievements. Isidore Mizell, a builder and caretaker of the John Bryan Groves, along with his wife Minnie, was perhaps one of the most prosperous black citizens in Dania. The Bank of Dania was established in 1912 by an out-of-town company. Shortly thereafter, it was bought out by local businessmen A.J. Ryan Sr., I.T. Parker, and M. Frost. And local contractors Tubbs and Austin built the new bank on the corner of Federal Highway and Dania Beach Boulevard. In 1914, the first automobile passed through the city on newly completed Dixie Highway. By 1915, the population had grown to 600 people, and Dania was Broward's second largest city. That year marked the opening of Lewis Brown's department store and the Dania Women's Club. Also, A.J. Ryan Sr. and his wife Genevieve opened their real estate firm, which is still in operation today and is believed to be the oldest continuously operating real estate firm in Broward County. Dania's population soared to 1,400 people by 1925. The Grand Dania Beach Hotel opened, and the city experienced an extraordinary economic boom. But on Christmas Eve 1925, disaster struck the city when a horrific fire destroyed most of the business district. A slumping stock market brought a decline in real estate, and on September 18, 1926, a hurricane scoured the city. In hopes of better times, the residents voted to be annexed by the city of Hollywood, but the downturn continued. Concerned about the debt on the Methodist Church, several women, with the help of the business community, planned the first tomato festival, held on May 17, 1927. 5,000 people attended the event, and its success was far beyond anyone's wildest expectation. Proceeds were sufficient to pay the entire debt of the Dania Methodist Church. So popular was the Tomato Day that the event drew many famous people, including Babe Ruth and many film stars. The event continued until 1956, when tomatoes were becoming scarce. Dania's honeymoon with Hollywood would be short-lived. Irritated by high municipal taxes on croplands, Danians voted for a referendum calling for the withdrawal of the city from Hollywood. Irate Danians came out in large numbers and waged a hotly contested battle to again become the city of Dania. In 1931, the last link of federal highway between the Dania Cutoff Canal and the Dade County line was dedicated. In 1935, the Labor Day hurricane again damaged the city. In 1938, the Frost packing plant was destroyed by yet another fire. According to Mr. Frost, there was not enough hose to put out the flames. The volunteer firemen, along with local resident William Brooks, worked feverishly to raise funds until Dania's firefighters were on a par with other cities. In 1940, the Catherine Hotel was built and remains today as the Pirates Inn. In 1945, Mr. and Mrs. Willard Ely opened their antique shop on Federal Highway, and thus became the proliferation of antique shops, and Dania's fame is the antique capital of the South. 2 American Legion posts were founded in the 40s. One was Dania Post 304, also known as the Albert Marshall Labrie Post. Albert Labrie was a Marine pilot and the first Danian killed in World War II. The other was Donald Parker American Legion Post 209, named after the U.S. Air Force sergeant killed in the Korean War. By 1950, Dania's growth slowed and farms were disappearing. But Dania remained home to a number of 4th and 5th generation residents who were descendants of original settlers. Dania was never politically dull. In the span of 22 years, Dania had 16 police chiefs and 16 city managers. The infiltration of salt water, along with the straightening, widening, and deepening of the intercoastal waterway, and construction of additional drainage canals, ruined the muck on the east side of Federal Highway and spearheaded the death of Dania's tomato crop and farms. Farmers had weathered insects, blight, floods, winds, and other misfortunes, but none could survive the saltwater intrusion. In addition to its growing reputation as an antique center, Dania cashed in on the tourist industry with the opening of the Dania High Life, constructed on the Harris T. Killey farm. The Dania Golf and Country Club replaced the Elliott Chapman Edge farm, much of which today is Meadowbrook. The 1965 opening of the privately owned seaport, Port Ladania, heralded the beginning of Dania's marine-related industrial growth, which continues to be strong today. Fires, hurricanes, and floods have played havoc with the city. In 1960, the famed FEC Railroad Depot was blown 100 feet off its foundation. In 1979, the historic Dania Elementary School building was destroyed by fire. A few structures symbolic of yesterday's Dania still remain. Some of these include the Andrew Frost House off of Federal Highway, the Nyberg Swanson and Dania Beach Hotel on Dania Beach Boulevard, as well as a sprinkling of homes, especially in the southwest section of town. A number of famous and well-vested businesses were located in the city at one time. The Dennis Roosevelt Research Foundation opened in 1940 on Federal Highway, or lovingly called the Monkey Jungle. It eventually closed to make way for the airport. The ever-popular Pirates World folded after unruly guests got out of hand. Dania remained a small town until it annexed the area to its west, known as Ravenswood, in the early 90s, and the city grew to approximately 29,000 in 2001 with an additional annexation. Today, Dania is home to several world-class attractions. These include the Design Center of the Americas, which is the largest on-campus design center in the world, Bass Pro Outdoor World, the International Game Fish Association World Fishing Museum, and Florida Atlantic University's SeaTech campus. Also well known are the beach, the fishing pier, and a burgeoning marine industry. The city's transportation facilities are unequaled in the nation, if not the world. Surrounded by an international seaport, airport, railroads, and also surrounded by $1 billion state-of-the-art superhighway system. Today, Dania Beach faces a bright future with extraordinary demand for redevelopment. Holding fast to our rich and proud history of the past 100 years, and honoring those unsung heroes who brought us this far, remains our priority.